Good morning, everyone. I'm Mr. Brown, and today we're going to be learning about how to use Photoshop. So we're going to start off by looking at our computers, opening up Photoshop, and getting things set up. Then I'm going to show you some basic techniques, and then we're going to show you how to save your files and turn them in. If you're an online learner and you're watching this video and you don't have access to Photoshop, go back to our main page at bit.ly/34jgj 3 capital W, and there should be another video posted. If it's not up first thing this morning, it'll be up pretty soon, on how to use an online resource called Photopea or Photopea or Photopea. I don't know. We've had a lot of discussion about how to actually pronounce that, but that should be posted also. It's really close to Photoshop, but you can do it online in a web browser. So that should be up later. If you're an online learner and you do have access to Photoshop, keep watching this video because it's all going to be applicable to you. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is look at our computer. Most of you that are here remember that we need to press the rocket ship or launch pad, or if you have a keyboard that works correctly, you can hit F4, but I'm going to hit the launch pad. I'm actually going to look for Photoshop. Now on your machines, this is my machine at home. On your machines, you're going to scroll over and it's going to be over here to the right. My machine, I've organized all of my stuff, and Photoshop is right here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Part of using Photoshop means you have to be pretty computer savvy. And so some of the stuff I'm going to try to walk us through, but hopefully it's not too confusing. But if you do get confused, send me an email, william.brown@terralisd.org, and I will answer and hopefully be able to help you out with that. So Photoshop is opening. My iMac is kind of old and decrepit, so it takes a while to open, but it's eventually going to open. Eventually. There we go. It's opening up. All right. So what we're going to do today is we're going to actually be manipulating a photograph. The photo is on Google Classroom for you to download. So download that image. It should go to your computer's download folder. And if you look at my computer, hopefully you have a download folder. Mine is right here, and it says downloads. And when I click it, it pops up, but it's down here on the dock. If you do not have a downloads folder on your dock, right here is your Finder. So you can click Finder, and it's going to bring up a window. And this is all the junk on my computer. And you should have a folder right here in your favorites named Downloads. And if you click that, it should just pop up with your recent downloaded files. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to come over to Open. So the other day when we were playing around, we hit Create New. But today we're going to come over to Open, and I'm going to have you guys click Open. And now what we have to do is find the image that you downloaded from Google Classroom. So right now, if you have not downloaded that image, go to Google Classroom, download that image immediately. Like I said, it should go to the Downloads folder. So I'm going to go ahead and click Downloads over here on the left under Favorites. And so to be honest, I forgot what the name of the file was. I'm hoping I just see it, but I didn't see it. Oh no, we gotta go back and look for it. It is called Adobe Stock and then some numbers. So here we go. I'm gonna go look for that. Adobe Stock and then some numbers. Okay, so on mine, the previews weren't loading, but on mine the previews finally did load. So here's our image. In case you need to see it, this is what your image should look like. So we're gonna just click it and click Open. And what that's gonna do, guys, is it's gonna actually, Photoshop gives you the ability to create files of any size or any shape or any type. And we're gonna get into that in a little while. But what we wanna do is open a document, open a Photoshop file that is the exact same size as the image we want to edit. So in order to do that, we can't hit Create New and then just drag and drop your picture into the Photoshop. Because if you do that, it's actually it's changing the size of the image and things won't fit and it's kind of goofy. So what we want to do is open the image in Photoshop that we just downloaded. So you should download a JPEG, and when you download the JPEG, it should go to your downloads folder, and then you can just do what I just did, click open, go to your downloads and find the image and click open. So I'm back on my computer, I'm clicking open. This computer is really slow sometimes. It's working. There we go. Ah, there we go. Okay. So here is our image. Let's talk a little bit about the basics of Photoshop, just in case you guys are a little bit confused. This on your left-hand side is your toolbar, and we're going to be using this quite a bit today. This is one of the most important things ever. You'll use this toolbar over and over and over and over because it is super important. Your screens may look slightly different, and the reason why is on the right-hand side, well, all over, Photoshop is extremely customizable, and you can set it up however you want to set it up. But the main thing that we need to look for is that you need to make sure you have layers showing. Some of yours may be clicked on channel, some of yours may be clicked on paths, probably not, but you need to make sure layers is showing. And what we have here is one layer, and it's labeled background, and it is locked. So we have one layer labeled background and locked. If for some reason you do not see your layers menu here, your layers panel, come up to window, click window, find layers right here. My Mac says I can click F7 and it'll show up, but I don't know if that's true for everybody's. So you click layers and it will turn this panel on, and you desperately need that panel today because we're going to be working in a couple of layers. So very first thing we need to do is we need to duplicate this layer. We have to duplicate this layer because what we're going to do with this image is we're going to take the photo. It's a really pretty color photo. We're going to take this color photo and we're going to change it to black and white except for the rose. And we're going to leave the rose red for a pop effect so that when people look at it, they see the black and white image, but then this rose just really stands out. It's beautiful, it's red, it's amazing. So we're going to create a really interesting image by changing everything but the rose to black and white. And the way that we have to do this is we need to create two different layers so that we can make one layer black and white and the other layer stays color. In order to create a new layer, if you look at your keyboard, you can hit Command and J. We're gonna be using the keyboard a lot to do things, and there are so many shortcuts that you guys need to know about. So next to your space bar is the Command button. It may say CMD, it may have the little four-leaf clover looking thing, it may just say Command, but there's one on each side of the keyboard. And most of our shortcuts are going to be done with the Command key. So make sure that you know where that is. We're going to use it a lot. Hit Command J. And there we go. I've got two layers now. I have one layer that says layer 1, one layer that says background. So what I'm going to do on layer 1 is I'm just going to double click where the name is. And I'm going to change that to BW so that I know that it's black and white. I don't get confused. For this simple stuff, this is like a really simple project. But when you get to working on more and more complex projects, you'll have 20, 30 layers over there. It can get crazy sometimes. And so labeling your layers is a good habit to get into. It'll keep things organized and you'll know where you are and what you're doing. So I've labeled my BW so that I know it's my black and white layer. And we're going to add an adjustment layer. So here's how Photoshop works. You have something called destructive and non-destructive edits. A destructive edit actually changes the pixels and they can never be changed back. And there are a lot of destructive edits in Photoshop. Well, we want to do as much non-destructive as possible because sometimes we want to come back and change things. So we're going to do a non-destructive edit on this image. So what we're going to do is we're going to come down and go to it's very small, at the very bottom of your layers menu, and it looks like a circle that's halfway filled up. And if you hover over it, it says create new fill or adjustment layer. And so what we're going to create is a non-destructive adjustment layer, and it will allow us to make changes to the image, but the images can be changed back and forth later. If I went in and just made this black and white, you can't go back and fix that ever. It's just always black and white. You'll have to duplicate a new layer. If you mess up, delete the old layer. If you use an adjustment layer, you don't have to go back and delete. It just needs to be readjusted, and that's what's great about it. That's why they call it an adjustment layer. So I'm going to create a new fill or adjustment layer. I'm going to click it, and I'm going to go to hue saturation. Hue saturation is under vibrance above color balance. So I'm going to go to hue saturation, and I'm going to click that. And if you look in your layers panel, you now have a brand new little hue saturation layer above this. On my machine, my tool already popped up. This is my hue saturation tool right here. Now, if you notice, if I click off of it, this changes. But when I click on it, I have a little properties window, and it's where I need to go. If you don't have your properties window, come up to window and go down to properties and turn properties on. So I'm clicking on my hue saturation, and what I need to do to make something black and white, we have to turn the saturation all the way down. Saturation is the term for how much color is involved in the image. And so if we turn the saturation completely off, there's no color left. So we're going to turn saturation completely off. So here is saturation. It's in the middle. You've got hue on top. And you can kind of play around with it. Just make sure we get it back to 0. But if I adjust the hue, you can see the whole picture changes colors. Pretty crazy. I'm going to reset that to 0. You've got your lightness, and you can see that makes it darker or brighter. We're going to reset that to 0. You can even do some other crazy things with this bottom stuff. We're not going to talk about it today. And we are going to turn the saturation way down. Now, before we turn the saturation way down, high school students have a problem with thinking that saturation is the bee's knees. So they will turn the saturation all the way up sometimes when they do adjustments. It's awful. Let's look at it. Let's turn the saturation up. What happens? Oh, it looks awful. It's just terrible. Saturation is the most overused thing. So don't turn saturation up. In fact, you generally always want to turn saturation down a little bit, because right now the less saturated the better. Hold on. There's an alarm going off somewhere. Let me find where that is. Okay, fix that. Sorry, guys. Alarms can be crazy. All right, alarm is fixed. Let's get back to it. We're going to turn the saturation all the way down to nothing. And as you watch the image, it's going to begin getting grayer and grayer. The reds are fading out. Last thing to go, and there we go. We've got a hue saturation layer, and it's got an effect applied. So we're going to do one more thing. The way that Photoshop works is over here in your channels, or over here in your layers panel. It kind of works like, well, I guess layers is the best way to say it. This hue saturation layer, this adjustment layer, affects every layer underneath it, but we only want it to affect the layer that's directly underneath it. So if you come back here to your properties panel, there is a little square, and on the side of it there's an arrow that comes out and it's got a line through it. And we're going to click that, because what that's going to make happen is it's just going to apply the adjustment to the layer directly underneath it, not to every layer. We do not want it to apply to every layer. So here we go. I'm going to click it, and it's going to apply just to the layer underneath it. And if you look right here, it's kind of small, but you can see that it has a little arrow going down. and that tells us that it is applying just to the layer underneath it. And if I turn this layer off, you can see that it goes back to being color. All right, so good job. If you're tracking with me so far, we've got a black and white image on our screen. You should have two layers, one that says BW, one that says background, and you have a hue saturation adjustment layer on top of that. So we're ready to do some more stuff. We're gonna use a different tool now. So come with me back to the screen. We're gonna use our eraser tool. And actually what we're gonna try to do is erase just the stuff around the rows. So what we're gonna do to do this is we have a black and white layer, and underneath it is a color layer. So what we're gonna do is take away the black and white rows. We're just gonna erase it completely so that the color rows that's underneath it will become visible. If you were using like paper or construction paper, it's like cutting a hole in the paper so you can see what's underneath it. So that's essentially what we're gonna do. We're gonna cut a hole in the picture so that you can see what's underneath the picture. So here we go. We're gonna go to our eraser tool. And if you start at the top, it's about halfway down, and it's just a little rectangle with half clear and half white. You can just hit the letter E most of the time. When it pops up, this is a good, I'm glad this did this, because I was doing some edits in the last time I was using Photoshop, and I had to turn my brush size way, way, way up. So you can change your brush size here. So we're just gonna change that down because I don't need 800 pixels. Maybe not even 87 pixels. Let's see, maybe 50 pixels? There we go. This is probably a pretty good size, around 50 pixels. You've also got another adjustment called hardness. And the hardness, it's kind of hard for me to explain, but it makes the edges a little bit soft so that they look a little bit fuzzy. So if I just, if I just like erase it, I have another setting that's off. Let me just Command Z. By the way, if you mess up, Command Z makes you go back. And that's an important thing to remember. Command Z goes back a step. Or you can go up to Edit and Undo, but Command Z is undo. And in Photoshop, you're gonna use it a lot. I need to come up here because I've changed my opacity down to 5%, and that's a setting way up here in the top, and I just need to adjust that to 100%. Yours should already be at 100%, but if it's not, you can check there. So if I'm using my feather, you can see how the edge here kind of is soft. If I change my hardness, I come up here, click the brush, the little arrow beside the brush, and change the hardness up. And then I erase. You can see how there's a huge difference in the way that the edge looks. This edge is a very hard edge. This edge is a very soft edge. I'm actually going to undo both of those erases, and I'm going to kind of leave my hardness at around 20%. So if you want to change your hardness to 20%, that should be good. By the way, I just zoomed in on my image, and the way you zoom in is you hit Command and the plus key, or Command and the minus key. They're up beside your delete key. So if you Command zoom in, that's going to help us really get a better idea on the row. So I'm going to Command zoom in as close as I can. And if you need to move your image around, you can press the space bar, and it turns your cursor into a hand, and then you just grab it and move it wherever you want. So here we go. And one more most important thing. Amateur Photoshop users do this all the time, and professional Photoshop users do this all the time too. Make sure you are erasing or doing your edits or doing your changes on the correct layer. Always double check your layer, because sometimes you'll just be erasing like crazy and think, why isn't anything happening? And then you look and you've erased the entire bottom image without realizing it, your bottom layer. So make sure your layer, my black and white, my BW layer needs to be selected. And so I'm going to come over here, and I'm just going to start to erase the rows. Now the middle part, you can just be crazy. Just go nuts with the middle part. Looky here. Oh my goodness, we're just killing it, wiping it out. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, it's just kind of tedious. So just get to erasing. And we can go all the way, get all the middle. Get all the parts that are red. Oh, that's actually still part of the rose. I thought that was like an extra chin the lady had, but it's actually part of the rose. So we've gotten most of the middle part done. Now, along the edges, we need to be a little bit more careful. So just carefully, you can even click one click at a time if you want to get it super accurate. The more accurate you can get it, the better it will look. Or you can click, hold, and drag if you're just that steady. Sometimes the mice that we have are not that great. I'm actually going to change my brush size down a little bit so I can get the corner. The keyboard shortcut to change your mouse, your cursor size is left and right brackets. They're right next to the letter P, and they will change your brush size. So you can just use those to adjust your brush. So I'm going to come along here and just fix this rose, and you just need to make sure every part that was gray gets erased above the rose. So we're just going very slowly, very carefully. Do take your time with this. I do not want to see sloppy roses at all. No sloppy roses. So I'm erasing, being very careful, making sure everything is just so. When it comes to Photoshop, guys, you really have to be just very, 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 a lot of attention to detail, because the details, as we talked about at the very beginning of the year, you remember when I had you do all that goofy detail stuff? Details become very, very important. And if you just sloppily color over this rose, erase over this rose, it's going to look sloppy. You're going to have sloppy results, and you are going to get a bad grade. You're going to be graded on this by how clean the rose erase looks. So definitely take your time. If you mess up, just hit Command Z, go back, and start again. I will give you one pro tip. When you're erasing, if you just hold down the mouse and just keep going, the computer counts that as one erase. So if you erase like the whole rose almost and mess up just a little bitty bit, and you hit Command Z, it's going to wipe it all out. So I kind of erase a lot. I click and let go, click and let go. That helps a whole lot, especially if you need to undo, because you don't undo as much. So I've only got a little bit left to go here. And I'm erasing very slowly and very carefully. And I'm almost there. And I like to be really picky about even the edges. I like to try to get all the way up to the edges. But be very careful. Make sure you don't get off of the edge or go over. Just be very, very, very extremely careful. And here I am down at the bottom. Uh-oh, there's an alarm again. I thought I fixed that, but it's just gonna keep going off. Let me fix it. Let me fix it. That's probably gonna go off every 10 minutes. I'll have to fix that later. Okay, so I believe my rose looks good. I'm gonna come back and double check a couple things. Make sure that it's all looking good. Go around my edges just a little bit more. And really spend a little bit of time checking this out. When you're done, all you need to do, and as you can see, I've got some spots I missed. So here's what I'm going to do to make sure that I didn't miss any spots. If you come over here to the right hand side and look at your layers, I'm going to turn off the background layer. Oh, look at all the stuff I missed. Oh man, so this stuff in the middle I do not need. So I can just come over here and just take all this junk away. All this stuff. So when you see on an image this white and gray checkerboard, that actually means that it's transparent. That's what Photoshop is telling you, that this is transparent right here. So, and you can see since I had a feathered eraser, it kind of gets softer and fades at the edge. That's kind of what I wanted anyways. You could honestly do it sharper, a harder eraser, and get probably a little bit better result. But for this assignment, it's just a little bit easier to do it this way. But when you see this, it means it's transparent. So if we rendered this image, there would be a hole right here in the image. And if we save it as a JPEG, it's just going to fill it in with the color white. If you save it as a PNG, it'll be transparent, but we'll talk more about that later. I'm going to turn my background image back on, and that looks pretty good. So I'm going to hit Command bracket. Oh no, I did the wrong thing. Hit Command Z. Oh, don't hit Command bracket. I'm going to hit Command minus. I don't know why I said Command bracket. We're going to zoom out. We're going to zoom out. And there is our image. That's our finished image. And it looks really nice. Looks really, really nice. Now, if you want to get crazy... Oh, it doesn't do anything. That's right. Never mind. Just ignore that part. I forgot. It's like, it's really early in the morning here. And I forgot what I was doing. I can't do that because I normally do this a different way, and I made y'all do it an easier way. So just ignore that whole last little section. Ignore it. Don't do anything with that. Forget it. Let's talk about saving the image and turning it in. And this is a very detailed thing. So come with me back to the computer. To save this image, we need to go to File, and we need to go to Save As. If you want to use the keyboard shortcut, those are always listed on the side. Shift Command S is how we save as. Shift Command S. I like to say Command Shift S, but whatever. It's the same thing. So Command Shift S saves as. We're going to click Save As. And we need to do some very specific things here. One is, where do we want to save it? One of the biggest problems that students have is because y'all have gotten really used to Chromebooks where everything saves to the cloud. We don't want to do that. This is a real computer, so we want to save it to a specific spot. And for right now, the best place to save it is just to the desktop. So we're going to actually save it to our desktop. Now, your desktop is probably going to be over here under Favorites. My desktop is set up to exist on my iCloud account, so it's way down here. But find Desktop and click it. So here's my desktop. And it says Save As. I'm going to change the name. Change it to your last name. So I'm just going to say Brown and then add the word Rose on it. So change it to your last name and Rose, which for me is kind of hilarious because my last name is a color. So Brown Rose. And I don't know how much you guys know about computers, but the last 3 letters, don't change those. It ends in .psd. And what a .psd is a Photoshop file. So if I wanted to save this so that I could come back and edit it later, I would save it as a .psd, but that's not what I want. I want to submit this as a final product. So what we're going to do is we're going to save it as a JPEG. JPEGs can be turned in on Google Classroom a lot easier, and I can actually look at the JPEGs. If you turn in a .psd, so hear me really carefully on this. If you turn in a .psd file, I will not be able to look at it and I will not grade it. So make sure you follow these next steps. They're very, very important. We're going to save it as a JPEG. So come with me. I changed the name to Brown Rose, and then I'm going to come down to Format, and I'm going to change that to JPEG. So what we have is I've selected Desktop. I've changed the name to my last name and the name of the file. We're just going to call it Rose. And I changed the format to JPEG. And now I'm going to hit Save. And what that's going to do is it's going to change this to a final product that can be shared anywhere. This is going to pop up and give you JPEG options. Yours is probably on 10 because that's where it always starts. So go ahead and change it to 12 to maximum. And then click OK. And now you have saved your image, and it should be on your desktop. And so all you have to do at this point is submit it on Google Classroom for the assignment, and you're finished. If you run into any issues, make sure you send me an email, and I'll be glad to kind of answer those and help you out. This is technically due today at the end of class. If you run out of time, though, you can work on it tomorrow. But there is going to be another assignment tomorrow. So make sure that you are working on this and getting this done. Do not waste class time goofing off because you're not going to have access to Photoshop to get it done anywhere else. All right, guys, that's all for today. Thank you for stopping by and checking out this tutorial. And good luck turning your rose red and keeping the rest of it black and white. We'll see you guys later. Bye.